let's start with you, Jimmy, for a second. First of all, Manchester United losing 2-1. It began great. Ronaldo equaling his appearance record, of course, and scoring in 16 straight Champions League campaigns. And he hits a good one, a great ball from Fernandes. But Wan-Bissaka, it was that red card really that just completely shifted the momentum. But fair play to Young Boys, a team that still had something to prove, and the American people took care. So talk to me about that game.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up and give some more context on what you'd mentioned, Cristiano Ronaldo ties Iker Casillas for the most matches played in Champions League history. He's also now scored 135 goals in 177 Champions League matches. He is the greatest of all time in this competition. I don't think there's any denying that fact. But when that red card happened with Wan-Bissaka, and I believe that it was a deserved straight red, he got there a little bit late. It's high. You can see the bottom of his boot. I don't think there's any question there, even though I saw some United fans complaining and whining a little bit. I mean, they got a freebie when Paul Pogba got away with it against Wolves. So you were due a red card, everybody. But what I thought was interesting from a tactical perspective was that Jadon Sancho went out immediately. Diogo Dalot comes in right away, which is fine, right? You bring in a defender for a winger now that you've lost Wan-Bissaka. He plays on the right side. Nice swap there. The sub at half, when he took off Van de Beek and brought off Varane, then he went to a back five, ultimately. 3 center backs, 2 wing backs. And I really felt like that set the tone and the messaging for his team. We're going for the draw here. And then in the 70th minute, he took off Bruno Fernandes and he took off Cristiano Ronaldo. And they just lost all those 4 players. Sancho, Van de Beek, Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes. Yes, Lingard came on. And yes, Matic came on. Those guys can play, of course. But it just felt like they were bunkering in. And when another team senses that that's what you're doing, the amount of pressure that Young Boys put on at that point, I just feel like Ole Gunnar's tactics invited that. And if they just kind of maybe stayed true to a back four and asked a couple players to do a little bit more defending than they usually do, which I think they would have because they were down to 10, then you make the subs and keep the integrity of your shape. And I just felt like that invited that pressure from Young Boys when they didn't necessarily, maybe wouldn't have earned it otherwise. So I thought the tactics were a little, I would say, naive from Ole Gunnar, and they got punished for it. That said, Jesse Lingard, what a hell of a pass to Jordan Pefok. I'm excited for Jordan Pefok, the U.S. international, for scoring the 95th minute. Their fans went absolutely crazy. I mean, they were running to the sideline. It reminded me of Roma this past weekend. I thought Jose Mourinho was going to run onto the field and start to get into the scrum as well. So very cool moment for the American international. He could still be running there right now. But very cool for Young Boys. But for Manchester United, got to be disappointed because as we talked about in our preview, they dropped similar points to Istanbul Başakşehir, and that's what ultimately cost them a chance to get to the knockout rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything Jimmy said. I thought what was really weird about Solskjaer's tactics was kind of in the last few minutes, he seemed to realize that he left his team with 0 out ball whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it was too late because all you could bring on was Anthony Martial, who needs players to work the ball up to him. I just thought it was really tame. You know, you don't have to play for the win, but you must realize that if you're going to play over half a game with a man down, you still need to pose some attacking threat. I don't mind whether that's... I would have kept Sancho on because he's someone that will beat a man, maybe as opposed to even a Fernandes who is going, he's not going to do it off the dribble. You can't just give him the ball and expect him to get you 20 yards up the pitch. But whoever it is, there kind of has to be a plan. And maybe that plan is pump it long to Ronaldo. He knocks it down. We work from there. Or it is give it to a Sancho and he beats 2 players. And that's how we get there. But I mean, I was kind of dipping in and out of this in the Salzburg game. And whenever I flipped over, it was Man United in the last few minutes was just Man United punting it. There was no one to aim for. There was no real play. And it's Young Boys. I couldn't believe how solid they made this team look defensively. This is Ferenc Varos scored 4 goals on this team. I don't even think Man United had 4 shots on target.
They had 2 shots, and only Ronaldo was responsible for both of them, which is unbelievable. I know they only had 10 men, but still, that's unbelievable, especially as you mentioned, against Young Boys. With all due respect, you got to give credit to David Wagner. And I think the fans being back in the stadium, that energizing crowd, I think that helped a lot. But Young Boys, fair play, took full advantage of the momentum of Wan-Bissaka. But to your point, James Benge, the fact that Manchester United really were just like, I don't know what they were hoping for, just for the game to finish, especially at a point where it was still just a draw. I mean, it wasn't like they were losing or they were clearly ahead. They still had something to prove, I think. What do you think of that, Jimmy?
Yeah, it was interesting. I thought that the tactics in this one, again, from Ole Gunnar, and I'm glad you brought up the Anthony Martial. He took off Fred. I mean, that's the one person you want out there kind of scrapping, digging out balls. And he brings
in the
Martial.
One game that you won him still is saying.
It's like, what is happening? What is absolutely happening? And to your point about Ronaldo, if Ronaldo's out there, he's a guy that demands attention. He could just stand there and young boys are going to be like, yo, we should probably stack this guy up. You sit in front of him, I'll sit behind him. So now you've got two guys occupied on one Ronaldo. And we could argue he counts as two players sometimes. I mean, that's how dominant he's been, especially in this competition. So I just felt like at halftime, it looked like Ole Gunnar's like, we're going for the draw. And let's just hold on and wait for the draw. And they just invited way too much pressure. And young boys took advantage of some mistakes, of course. But United didn't shower themselves with in glory, let's say. Glory, Man United, with regard to how they performed in the second half. And yeah, I think that's on Ole Gunnar. I really do. He put in Lingard, and Lingard makes the mistake. And I like Lingard, so I'm not holding that against him. That stuff happens. But, I think Ole Gunnar's got to own this one.
Well, if you're a Manchester United fan, we would love to hear your opinion. I want to know if that was is it a good thing that this performance happened now, as opposed to maybe like towards the end of the group stages? I would love to hear. See, James Benge is already he doesn't want it anytime.
But these, as Jim said,
3 points are 3 points, right?
Get the 3 points in. You have to get the 3 points in. The other, you have to assume that they will drop some points against Atalanta and Villarreal. If they don't, well done, you've won the group. This was fine. But that's, I can also see at least one of Atalanta and Villarreal getting 6 from 6.
Yeah.
And that's when it starts getting fiddly. And, as you guys said, that's what cost United last year. I mean,
you got to make it happen now.
The worst time to have this performance, I have to say. You've got to beat your group whipping, boys.
Des, you have a question from Carlos Cosio. Manchester City with 10 men would have scored 3 goals against young boys. Fair point. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got his tactics totally wrong, boys. Jesse Lingard for Ronaldo was shocking. Whatever Lingard can do, Ronaldo can do 3 times better. Wow, Carlos, some very big comments here. I would love to hear James and Jimmy. Go ahead, Jimmy, and then James, you follow up. What do you make?
Well, 3 times better. It seems a bit harsh, I think, on Lingard. He's proven that when he gets to play, he can make a difference. I just wonder what kind of tactics he's being told or being informed to play. And at that point, they were already in a defensive shell. They were already inviting a ton of pressure. I don't think he should have subbed off Ronaldo. But Ronaldo, the 70th minute, after lagging all that time, I think a fresh Lingard made sense. It's just, was the team set up for him to really take advantage of it? Like, to James Benge's point, once he gets the ball, who the hell is he playing to? All the guys that could play they're gone. They're like, yeah, go for it. The defense is like, yeah, go for it. You could run 70 yards by yourself and see if you can make it happen against a young boys team that I think could sense that maybe this could turn their way. They just need to get a little bit of a break. Now, we could argue if you put 5 talented players in that back line, and you have, excellent, you have Fred in front of you holding it down, and there's obviously an emphasis on playing defense. The Lingard stuff alone, the fact that they gave up that first goal, I think, is probably what you'd want to look at. That player for young boys got isolated 1v1 with Luke Shaw. How does he get the cross off? How are there not guys there to kind of clear that out? You have 5 guys in a line. That shouldn't happen. So those were probably where I'd probably scale it back and get back to it. And that's actually before the subs even happened, that first goal. So Ole Gunnar definitely didn't get it right. I think we got into that. But I don't think Lingard is the ultimate one to blame. Obviously, he was the last guy that made the ultimate mistake. But I think there's a couple things that build up to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lingard's the ideal person to kind of bring on in this scenario.
Before you carry on, James Benge, here's the poll, by the way, while everybody's watching. Where will Manchester United finish in Group F? 62% still think, second will be good enough. Go ahead, James Benge.
I think they'll still finish top, to be honest. I just think they've made their task really fiddly. I think that, if you think about, everything has to be done to plan. Now, I really like the idea of let's lump the ball long to Ronaldo and Jesse Lingard can run off him and be the second striker. I've seen that work at West Ham. It worked very well with Miguel Antonio. Maybe Ronaldo's a little better. I would say he's about 1.05 times better than Miguel Antonio. So, yeah, I think having Lingard on was great. The player that makes a mistake, it doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad footballer. I mean, we've seen Jesse Lingard in 2021 playing, a level that kind of quite few English players have played. I think he's fantastic. Lingard definitely not the problem. But Man United, they're gonna get through, but they've just made it so much more stressful and given themselves very little room to maneuver.
I was going to say, I think that now they need a big performance away at Atalanta or something like that in order to make sure that they, maintain that rhythm. But, I just want to echo what James said. This is not Jesse Lingard's fault. This is, it's a mistake. It is what it is, but they still have enough talent, and so does Jesse Lingard.